All right, I thank you all for your patience on this as we work through some technical difficulties. Also appreciate that we brought back snacks for a SWAC meeting. It is, you know, the whole COVID situation happened. We had to eliminate them, but we're bringing them back. So attendance, I see 3 SWAC members. Would like to welcome City Council Member Bart Hansen, subbing in for Kim Harless, joining us. Good to see you, Bart.
See you, Jason.
Then moving along, we cannot approve the minutes because we do not have a quorum. So we'll skip that part. One thing I do want to bring up, we do have 4 open positions, 3 expiring terms, and 1 vacant position. Recruitment period ended yesterday, July 31st at 5 p.m. And we have 4 candidates. So wait to see next meeting. Hopefully we have some more people. All right, solid waste enforcement, Kimberly.
I'm going to let Melissa go first with her progress report, and I'll come in behind her.
Hello everyone, Melissa Sutton for Public Health, Solid Waste Enforcement. I will be very brief because I know we have a very booked schedule. This last quarter, we had 30 complaints come in, 27 resolved all over the county. The most unique one this quarter was a dead seal that turned out to be a sea lion in Washougal, and they got to coordinate facility with Washington State Department of Fish and Wildlife, who said, leave it and let it decompose. So that was a fun, interesting thing of the quarter. So, but I will be brief, and I will hand it back over to Kimberly, and she wants to talk a little bit about things. Thank you.
That was super quick, Melissa. 2 updates. One, we're still awaiting the updated interlocal agreement for Leichner. We changed some language in there to bring it more current to our current status. And when we get that back, Joelle will get a chance to review it and be able to share anything she wants to share with you all on that piece. The second part is just an update on the work that we're doing with the schools regarding their disposal of their hazardous material and vapes. I have reached out to Jake Ponce, been coordinating quite a bit with Brett with the city, and asked for a meeting for us to get that all coordinated so we can actually get that started for them to start disposing of their hazardous waste. So that's all I got.
All right. Thanks, Kimberly. Solid waste operations, Joelle.
All right, well, my big update is obviously the solid waste management plan preliminary draft is available. And we've got paper copies here, and just big shout out to everybody that's worked on this. We're very, very proud of the draft that we have out. It's available online. We have paper copies. If you didn't receive one and you need one, let us know. Our timeline and next steps, we've got the public commenting period. It kicks off today. This is also satisfying the public hearing for the plan, and that ends on August 30th. We've got flyers available. I've been meeting with each of the public works directors for all of the cities and town of Yackle to provide copies of the plan, flyers to post in city halls and everything to let people know about this public commenting period. We've got a smart sheet that we're using to make sure that we're capturing and responding to all comments as they come in. We're only receiving comments through that online portal. Next steps will be to receive feedback from Ecology on approval of the plan or if there's any revisions required, and we're going to work on getting resolutions of adoptions in place early next year. So getting calendar goals with all the cities. So I'll have more updates on that. I've also got a bunch of RFPs going on and contracts in place. We have an RFP out right now for 4th transfer station siting study, which I've talked about before. And we'll be reviewing proposals for that later this year. We've got our yard debris curbside collection RFP that just was released yesterday. And we completed an RFP for a solid waste financial consultant to do the work of a cost benefit analysis of the public ownership of the transfer stations, along with several other sort of financially based solid waste projects and analyses for us. And that contract was awarded to FCS Group. And I'll have more information about that probably at our next meeting. And we also are doing a waste characterization study. We did the RFP. We received proposals. We'll be reviewing those and let you know who the contract is awarded to probably by next meeting. So that's it.
Alright. Awesome, thanks, Joelle. Solid waste education outreach, Sarah.
All right, I'm just gonna give some high-level updates on, and a recap of a few of the projects that we're working on. So, the composter recycler workshops that educate the community on how to do backyard composting, have a worm bin for composting. They've distributed 40 worm bins, since we chatted last, and 58 backyard composters. So that's, that's a lot of behavior change and action in the community. And in addition to that, for those who don't have space to do backyard composting, maybe multifamily, we currently have 9 sites participating in the We Compost program. So residents can bring a pail. Centrally, we have 9 distributed throughout the county. We're looking at geographic diversity so that people can drop off their household food scraps at no cost. And to recap, I spoke a bit about the Secure Your Load campaign at our last SWAC meeting. And I just want to summarize that the team worked very, very hard on partnering with Ecology to do some pre-campaign data collection, launch a campaign during the month of June, and then do some post-campaign data collection at West Van and Central Transfer Station. So we did 4 giveaway events, and 521 customers pledged to secure their loads and when they arrive at those transfer stations. And including 38 that were in Spanish, we hired an interpreter to work with us through that process. And that was very successful. In addition, just wanted to shout out to Waste Connections and Department of Ecology and City of Vancouver for partnering with us on the campaign. I don't know if you saw any of the advertising that we did, but we had some roadside reader boards and some Spotify ads, and we really were trying to reach a broad cross-section of the community on that. And the results are not in yet. We did have one hiccup with a delay of our post-campaign data collection and had to delay because of heat for one of our collection days. So we're gonna tack that on Monday. And those are my updates.
Awesome. I did notice some of those roadside reader boards.
Yeah.
Grab by, secure load, hanging on the front. All right, moving on, City of Vancouver.
All right, I'll do that. I'm Steve Worley, I'm the Public Works Director for City of Vancouver. I'm sitting in for Julie, who happens to be in the Netherlands right now. Can't understand why she would fly over to this meeting to give a presentation. So, but she did give me some information that I thought I would share with everybody. As far as the solid waste AmeriCorps litter stewards, we've got some information to share. We had an amazing AmeriCorps person, Kristen Neighbor, who wrapped up her term in July. And during that time that she was here, there were 96 new community members who were trained and participated in the litter stewards program, giving 251 hours of volunteering service. They conducted 14 city organized cleanup events, and on their own, they met with they had group events, picked up an estimated 4 tons of litter and garbage from city parks, trails, and city public spaces and property. And since the pilot program began in 2021, there are over 200 trained and equipped litter steward volunteers now as a result of that program. So we're excited about that. Vancouver wrapped up our annual spring coupon program that ran for 3 months, April through June. Coupons were designed with the new logo and brand, 2 coupons for yard free. Total cost was $71,000, which is down from 2023. Total cubic yard debris, 5,500 total cubic yards, and total tires, 1,228 tires, up from 1,066 in 2023. So now they're working on planning for their fall coupon season. The regional leaves coupon will be redesigned this year for the new look and feel. Coupons are available for all residents of Vancouver and Clark County. They'll be in the newsletter, the Waste Connections fall mailers, city neighborhood flyers, The city's also putting out boxes for fall leaves. We're using GIS and tree canopy mapping tools to evaluate leafy areas and neighborhoods. So I hope I did half as good a job as Julie would have done, but that's the report for the city of Vancouver.
Awesome, thank you. Waste Connections, I'm not sure if Derek has signed on at all. Don't think so. All right. Moving on. Okay, new business, ecology legislative changes for organics. Travis Scott.
Like I'm getting ecology. Sorry.
And they're here to watch you give it too.
As most put on my agenda.
We're just giving like a 2024 overview.
Okay.
Versus not solely focusing
And
on.
we're gonna drill you on all of our questions.
That's fine. I just want to make sure I'm going to talk about a lot more than just organics.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. And I tend to not make a habit of speaking on behalf of colleagues.
Maybe there's some lost.
That's fair, like, you know. So. All right, well, thank you very much. It's excited to be here. My name is Travis Dutton. I am a policy analyst with the Washington State Association of Counties. And actually a resident of Clark County, so very excited to hear what kind of conversations and decisions you guys are all gonna make today, just up the road in Washington. So, good to hear, grown up here my entire life. So I'm gonna go ahead and just go over a little bit about what I do and just a quick synopsis of our organization, and then go over some legislative updates, things that have happened so far in 2024 related to solid waste, and some things that we're preparing for and some projects that we're working on. First slide. And I apologize in advance, our color scheme doesn't always translate to visibility. That looks all right. So today I'm going to go over some legislation that took place in 2024, things that passed, things that did not pass, and some things that we're expecting to come up again in 2025 and 2026 related to solid waste. I'm going to give just a brief organizational overview of our organization and some of the other affiliates that you all may work with. We're going to talk about some priorities that our solid waste group that I'll talk about in just a second set for 2025 and 2026. Go over what the remaining activities for our group is in 2024, and then just talk a little bit about some of the other work that we do outside of solid waste. So, perfect. As I mentioned, a lot of you likely are familiar with this organization, but I work with the Washington State Association of Counties. So you likely work with the Association of Washington Cities. There's a city's counterpart that we work with very closely. And the goal of that organization is to serve the elected members of all 39 counties in Washington. So our primary customers are the county member or council members or commissioners in each county. We also have groups that work with assessors, treasurers, et cetera, but we sort of act as a central service for legislative, not consulting, but just helping engage between counties and the state when it comes to very important things. So topics on the far left there, you'll see we really love our super long acronyms, and we really work really hard to make them into acronyms and not just initials. So WASCM is the Washington Association of County Solid Waste Managers. Every county in Washington is responsible for providing and planning for solid waste services in the county in partnerships with the cities. So we have, I think we actually had our largest conference back in June attendance-wise, but we've got representation from almost all of the counties. In many cases, the smaller counties, their public works director wears about a dozen different hats, not if you don't, but in some of the smaller counties, their solid waste manager is their roads manager, is their, et cetera. So we also work with WSALFA, which Clark County being unique in having their solid waste program in public health. That's the local public health officials. So that is, I think, Dr. Melnick participates, Roxanne's on those meetings a lot, but and technically environmental enforcement. So some of the work that Melissa does around enforcing solid waste facilities falls under that group. We also have county engineers, county regional planning directors, etc. But our primary customer group are the county council members, county commissioners, or if only Clark County councilors. Next slide. So I'm gonna talk about a couple of bills that passed this past session. There was a bill around mercury lights. So there's currently a program that collects funds to sell mercury light bulbs to dispose of them properly. That program is set to sunset next year. So that program has been extended, and instead of paying an eco fee when you purchase the bulb, a certain amount of, if you were going to sell light bulbs into the state of Washington, you have to pay into a fund to bring it up to more of a traditional extended producer responsibility program. But it extends that program, I think, until about 2035. So we can still get through, while mercury lights are no longer, certain types of mercury lights are no longer allowed to be sold in the state. It will take us a while to get through the stock that's been sold out to make sure that doesn't go. There was a second organics bill this year that extended the previous Organics Management Act. So if folks remember, well, or don't remember, but about 3 years ago, say 2020, the state passed the Organics Management Act, which required counties to begin planning for and providing organics collection service at businesses and residents, set goals for food waste rescue and food waste collection and food waste reduction. This year, the bill did a couple of things. It increased the business collection requirements, so it set some standards for businesses of certain sizes and when they're going to be required to participate in a food waste collection program. It requires residential curbside, mandatory residential curbside in residential. And we've been working on this. It's a very complicated map. It's a very difficult sentence to state and way to describe it in one sentence. But in certain parts of the county that meet population or UGA requirements, compost collection will be mandatory in 2030. There was also some funding that was set aside for food rescue organizations, so primarily dedicated to cold storage of food, which is a big hurdle for a lot of food rescue agencies. We're waiting to see, we're hearing that there's going to be additional expansion of the organics requirements. A lot of our members and partners included are really trying to figure out how to catch up to where we are now and where we're going to be, and aren't really sure what's going to be added to this, but we're watching a lot of things. The Climate Commitment Act is intended to fund a lot of the laws that have been passed in the organics expansion, and if that doesn't make it through the ballot in November, we're very curious to see what happens with a lot of the laws that are dependent upon that Climate Commitment Act funding. So we're going to be watching that, but really primarily I've been working with counties to really break down the requirements. Ecology has made some fantastic maps, and we do a lot of back and forth to really make sure that the counties are aware of who's going to be required to do what. So it's a big project. There was a bill related to illegal dumping that passed that really didn't do a lot other than change the type of violation that dumping on public or private property is, so that it no longer requires a court hearing. It's more along the lines of a ticket. And it was basically because any illegal dumping case was not ever being heard because the courts were already backlogged, and for various reasons, illegal dumping wasn't a priority for a lot of county courts, and so they weren't getting prosecuted and they weren't receiving any revenue or paying. So, and then lastly, there was a cannabis disposal bill. I know that that's not what cannabis looks like, so we'll just chalk it up to either you guys believe I don't know what we do, or Microsoft doesn't have a cannabis icon that works. So, but really what that did was reduce the amount, reduce some of the standards for cannabis waste material to be composted instead of thrown in a landfill. So it sets THC levels. So it's not like folks are going to be able to go dumpster dive in and find a whole new collection, stuff to take home and smoke, or whatever people do with it, but it really just diverted a pretty big, I didn't really know how big of a waste stream this was in Washington until talking to some of the larger counties up around Puget Sound. So there's quite a bit. So it's a good. So
Travis, would like vape pens and so forth fall into
this is
that?
solely for organic material from think about growers and what gets left behind. It's not usable. It's not usable product. So no, this vape pens and those are a whole other issue. But no, this is specifically related to sort of the crop.
Can I swing back to the mercury lights? Is the state requiring retailers that sell it to be collection points? Or is that, because I've gone into retailers on various batteries, lights, and other things, and I find people that they say we're not required to take.
I don't believe it requires anybody that markets them to be a collector. That's something that's been coming up a lot of the EPR bills. See you nodding your head. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, Blake.
Blake, okay,
Blake Nelson, Solid Waste Management, Southwest Region. Peter Lyons.
perfect. Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Talk to Peter. Hold on. So yeah, I don't. Do you know the mercury lights collection? Is that it's not popular?
So
It's not just the mercury lights. Anything that a retailer sells that has electronics, then it goes all the way to lithium batteries. Is the state gonna require the retailers to become a collection?
I can answer that a little bit.
yeah, there's a little bit the difference there. So the Mercury Light specifically, it's called the JLAC committee. I can't remember exactly what that stands for. It's a joint legislative.
They do all the research for.
Yeah, we actually looked at sunsetting that because it's what do you call it? LCDs. Is that right? The fancy new things that replace, the nice.
Yeah, the LED.
LEDs, thank you. Who was I saying? At any rate, there's a point of sales fee on the Mercury lights that's already basically been maxed out. There's almost not enough money there to keep the program going. It basically, long story short, pushed the program out another couple of years. Like we looked at just like shutting it down, but the legislature decided to keep it running for at least, I remember it was 2027 or 2029. And we do have a position for that in ecology that's currently vacant, so that's how on it we are.
But it's the new trend the way that these programs are being implemented, including paint, batteries, the batteries rulemaking, there's an EPR program for batteries that's undergoing rulemaking right now. But the legislation that has been passing does not require a retailer to be a collection point. It puts the collection responsibility on the producers. And so the producer has to make it enticing enough for the retailer to participate, or they need to find alternative collections, either through working with counties, cities, or other places to take those back. So your retailers are not going to be required to, similar to paint, but they can if they would like to, and often there's an incentive or a reward or reimbursement to do so.
Okay, logic to the consumer on what to do with it and replacing, like we replaced the way back light bulb. The thing the retailer that sells it would be able to know.
Not often, and often it's because these are really elaborate things that are passed and kind of get dumped on them, so that they know that there's a place for it to take, but they're not typically responsible for the disposal of it. They're sort of a passive receiver of materials, and so they're not held responsible. So, but great. Next slide.
Quickly, on illegal dumping and on the cannabis, do they specify who will have enforcement capability on those? Like, will it defer back to local health jurisdictions, especially for illegal dumping? I know the Liquor Cannabis Board, it has been very active in the vegetation waste and making sure it's ground and then mixed with dirt so that it's not usable. Do you know if it's been identified?
Well, for the illegal dumping bill, I think it depends upon whoever has legal jurisdiction, law enforcement jurisdiction, or legal jurisdiction in that area. So like public lands, DNR will have legal enforcement, county sheriffs. So it falls to the local law enforcement, but it shouldn't further engage. I'm sure there are scenarios, and I don't want to speak out inaccurately, but my understanding, it shouldn't further engage public health unless there is a specific type of dumping that's been going on. But this is more about, I dump somebody that gets caught dumping their couch or their household garbage in the woods someplace. And that just, whoever is out there has the law enforcement, not whoever, it's not martial law or citizens arrest, but like DNR, sheriff, so these are things that came up this year, and some of them have been coming up repeatedly, and I'll talk about which ones we see or expect to have coming back. So paper and packaging EPR, so extended producer responsibility for a majority of the consumer products that we purchase and their packaging. There's an extended producer responsibility that would require anybody that sells the covered materials, anything from beverages and the packaging that beverages come in, to clothing or shoes, the packaging they come in. They need to establish a central organization in the state that manages a program to ensure that those materials have a place to go to be recycled and a process to be recovered. And so that one has been coming up. I think this was 2024 was the third year that it had come up. It gets a little bit closer every time, but it has a lot of opposition from the private service collectors, haulers, and the manufacturers as well. And there's there has been some concern. Our organization was neutral on this bill simply because we're uncertain of the fiscal impacts it will have to either the consumer products themselves or to the revenue streams that some counties get by directly engaging with recycling and retailing those raw materials. So we expect that to come back this year, and I get 50-50 on whether they think they're going to get it across the finish line or not this year. And this is actually one of the things that my boss, Paul Jewell, who also works at WASAC, has said for years is that no politician runs on a solid waste platform. It's just not a thing that is big news in very many cases. And this is the first year that I've seen an attack ad specifically around an opponent of this bill, and they are running partially on a solid waste platform. So that's a new one that I have never seen before, but it's an important thing to a lot of folks, and it's come up a lot. And it's been some of the most exciting, entertaining, and interesting committee hearings at the Capitol in recent years. So we expect that to come back up again. And that one is often partnered with a bottle deposit program. So those of us around here are fairly familiar with Oregon deposit program, 10 cents per container. You have the option to put it in your curbside container and relinquish ownership of that deposit, or you can bring it back to redemption centers and get your credit back in various ways. So that is a model. A couple of different models have been proposed in Washington, and we expect to see a third iteration of a bottle deposit program tied very closely with the EPR bill above it. There are some folks that say one or the other. There are some folks that will only pass one of the other bills as well. So it's very much, they're very much tied together. So down at the bottom is improving recycling. This is one that was put forward and developed by the Tribe Haulers, so it's the organization that represents Republic or Waste Connections or Waste Management. And this was essentially, let's study what we need to do in order to set up an EPR program, but let's get the study done. Let's set requirements around recycled content. Let's set requirements around truth in labeling laws, and let's set some of the stones that we need to get to better recycling numbers, but didn't go as far as establishing a full-on EPR program. We did support that one because it moved us towards some of this information and would have given us better information to work with. But that one did not make it through its original. I think it started in the Senate or the House, and I don't think it made it out of the House this session. So those three are all very much tied together and very much connected. There were some rules around the use of litter tax as far as state administration fees go. Let me just finish this slide real quick. There was also a bill that would have required, similar to EPR, around appliances that have certain types of coolants and gases in them that wouldn't have had a huge impact on counties, since a lot of places already, if the county's doing it, they're already collecting gas, or private sector is taking care of that. It just would establish sort of an incentive program to make sure that it got turned back over to recyclers for use. And then there was a dilapidated RV bill. And its goal would have been to subsidize the cost of disposing of an RV at the end of its life. So it wasn't looking at junk RVs necessarily, but if you've been driving your RV for 15 years and you just don't want it anymore, and selling it cheaply means it might become a derelict or a derelict RV down the road. There's a program that would reimburse folks transportation and disposal costs for RVs. there was a big fight with, that looked at revenue for the Department of Transportation, which is, that's just a big fight to pick. So that ran into some issues and ultimately where the funding is coming from for that program. So I don't know if that's any questions on the debt or return answer.
It's actually on the improving recycling.
Okay.
In the conversations that you've got a part of, you said that they're investigating, we're talking about this. Within the United States, supposedly Waste Connections capture 72% of the recycled material in their process. Okay, within that industry, I believe the state of Maine recovers 95%. So my question specifically is, in your conversations, is there any effort to contact or consult with other states that are going to get higher rates of return, not only on the recycling capture, but also on the revenue generated from the recycled material that they capture?
So I think this might be a longer conversation, but I want to make sure I understand that there's capture, which is how much of the potential recyclables are being collected. You mentioned that they're
The yield out of what they capture.
what they capture.
Yeah,
and
the technology's there where we can get a 20% increase with different technology. Is that, rather than study it, if they're realizing it in their other parts of the country, is Waste Connections or Republic, are they sharing? Like we're talking about a fourth location in New York. Are they presenting to you that technology?
They're not presenting to us that technology. I'm not in a position where they're going to talk to me about their technology. They may be talking about that with legislators, but the goal here is to get to improved sorting, but draw, these pieces of legislation are really geared towards making a stronger connection between the manufacturers of products and the end of life, right? So it's materials are being designed and distributed, and there is not necessarily a way to capture, process, or recycle all of those things. And it falls on counties and it falls on MERS to update constantly those materials. So yes, there's technology out there, but it all comes down to yes, but it's going to cost money. And so, improving recycling is going to be expensive. And so the goal is to go to a structure like this so that the cost is sort of spread out amongst consumer goods, whether it's new technology, whether it's redesigning products so that they're capturable in the technology that exists now, or somehow incentivizing or creating a stronger connection between those two spaces. So it's not about identifying a specific technology, it's about creating a connection between the technology that exists and the way products are designed so that there's some connection between them. Right now, there's almost nothing. So, cool, thanks. So in June, when we met, we set our organization as a whole, and then our affiliate groups, such as Blackstone and Solid Waste Managers Group, set biennial legislative priorities. So we established new priorities for 2025-26, and we're just undertaking a project to really evaluate what our options are and prioritize some of these. And these will be our legislative priorities that myself, that Joelle and Sarah will hopefully join us in Olympia when we go bug all the legislators and run around the Capitol lobbying on a day. But this is the information and these are the asks that we're going to be putting, even SWAC members, big SWAC members out there. If you guys want to come up. I should run that by Joelle.
You're gonna drive the bus?
Jason's going to drive the bus. I'll be living up there. Yeah, I live up there during session, so I'll already be up there. There's a training tool, so. Okay, so, but these are the things that we're going to be building advocacy documents around. This is what we're going to be talking about. And the biggest issue right now for solid waste is funding. We rely very heavily on tip fees, and we rely very heavily on local solid waste financial assistance grants. Both of those are based on revenue streams that are reverse incentives to reduce waste and to achieve the environmental goals that we want. The more successful we are in reducing the amount of material that goes to the landfill, the greater the reduction in tip fees or the ability to collect those fees to fund the majority of these programs. The local solid waste financial assistance grants come from the Model Toxics Control Account, which is a tax and a fee on hazardous products and fossil fuels. As the state moves towards reducing fossil fuel dependency, those funds are also going to be going down, and we're actually already seeing that happen. There's some concern that that fund, and I don't mean to be hyperbolic or alarmist, but we thought we had some time, but that the forecast for that funding source is looking a lot worse and worse with every forecast that comes out. So it has a lifespan on it right now. So we really want to work on diversifying where our revenue comes from, and we want to develop more secure revenue streams that we can be confident will be there, or at least have greater confidence over the next 10, 20, 50 years. So we're going to be looking at, there's currently a 3.6% excise tax on the collection of solid waste. So it's broken out on your invoice. I've looked at it, I double checked mine this morning. I pay $1.77 in Washougal every other month. And that solid waste collection tax right now goes to the Public Works Assistance Account, which funds county programs to low interest loans for solid waste infrastructure projects, road projects, and sewer and drinking water projects. But we want to take a look at what we can do to see if there's any opportunities to direct or get more solid waste funding out of that tax. We're also looking at some of the other, a lot of programs in other states around single-use container taxes or plastic taxes, things that exist. I know the word tax up there is a whole lot, but these are things that largely already exist. We just want to modify them or reframe how they can be spent. Update and or adapt the litter tax. Ecology put out a litter study last year. They put out a litter study that really identified that right now there is a 0.15% tax on materials that are identified as litter or contributing to litter. But that law was passed and that list was developed in 1971. So things are a lot different, and it only covers about a quarter, maybe a fifth of the statewide costs to clean up litter. And that goes to programs like what you were talking about. It goes to community programs, the ecology, it funds a lot of, I don't actually know if it's, I shouldn't say, I don't know if it's funds that we use for it or not, but those funds go statewide, to clean up litter, but they're not covering the entire cost. And then we are going to take some time. There's quite a few to look at this bottle deposit program. If it comes back up again, the model that was proposed would have allowed the organization that was in charge of the bottle deposit program to keep unclaimed deposits. In Oregon, it's about $31 million a year go unclaimed. And right now the organization keeps that to manage the program. And so we want to take a look at some alternative models in Washington that help counties improve recycling, get money to county and city programs to increase their ability to reduce waste, et cetera. So we're going to take a look at a couple of different bottle deposit programs, because if that model comes back up again, we want to be ready. And it might not be the thing we want, but if we're at the table and we get something out of it, we're able to make improvements. That's something we want to be in a position to do. So, any questions about those variables? Yes.
I have a question regarding funding. Has there been any discussion, or is there even a mechanism to look into some of the funds coming through the Climate Commitment Act, the greenhouse gas fees that have been assessed, that might be able to help with some of the funding through grants or
Yes.
funds?
Yes, I mentioned a little bit. There is some food waste legislation that's passed in recent years, and the Climate Commitment Act funding is going to be key for that. But yes, that is some of the other. A lot of the there's about $800 million in deferred infrastructure projects across the state solely for solid waste that need to be completed in the next 10 years. And so we spent a lot of time last year with some of the representatives that oversee financial to really connect which of these projects are greenhouse gas beneficial or which of these projects have the ultimate climate benefit. And so we had drawn very close ties, and at one point we had about $25 million offered for us to start on some of those projects, and then all of that was pulled away sort of at the last minute. So there's just a lot of uncertainty about that, but absolutely. This could definitely change depending upon our priorities, could change depending upon where that vote goes, especially related to food waste as well as some of the infrastructure projects. So yes, but there's a lot of hesitancy to really commit anything from that fund right now. So
Right, especially with this.
But yeah, we really hope that a lot of our projects, not so much in Clark County, but there's a lot of open landfill and closed landfill greenhouse gas monitoring and capture requirements that have passed in the last couple of years. Those are going to be incredibly expensive. There's no money for that right now. So right now there is some money, but there's not enough to cover it all. And I think everybody's kind of waiting to see, CCA money. That's a direct methane reduction program. But until we know what's going to happen with that.
Everything that you got up there refers to impacts the consumer. The question I've got, and maybe Joel was the current contract, are we going to get any increased revenue back from the resale of the captured recycled material out of our solid waste sorting areas? According to the last management plan, I think the county got a total of $1.7 million. Okay, and if you applied that same material in other parts of the United States, the value of that same material is as high as $21 million. So as the market expands, or we participate in the expansion of the market possibly, is there anything that there's nothing there that addresses we're going to get a higher percent of return on the revenue generated from the resale of recycled material? Is that being addressed?
No, not right now. I mean, not in the sense of we've looked at some of the other legislation that EPR bill would remove for quite a few counties a significant amount of cost related to managing the solid waste program. That could come back, counties can address that in quite a few ways. They can either expand for the same amount of money, expand the services that are being offered. They could reduce the cost to the resident for participating in solid waste services. But we don't know if that's going to take place. I wouldn't be, let's say this. The recycling market has to make significant improvement before it begins to generate enough revenue for it to go back to revenue sharing models and having significant amount of revenue to build into. So we need a lot of other things. These are not designed to necessarily improve the recycling market. These are designed to help counties maintain the requirements that they're required to meet. So we're looking at that scope right now. So, and this right here is intended solely to prevent the increase of tip fees. Because without any of these, without revenue streams that are reliable and adequate, it has to come through tip fees. Because that is our primary mechanism in the state for funding solid waste, and we want to rely less on. So sort of, I guess, not necessarily looking at capturing revenue downstream right now and bringing it back, but we're trying to keep solid waste reasonable and not increase it. So sort of the other way around. All right. Just a couple of things. This is what we're going to be doing as an agency. So, Joelle and Sarah and the other members of our Waxman group, we met in June. Next week, I'm kicking off a subcommittee of Waxman to take a look at those funding priorities, develop recommendations to bring back to the whole group. We have our large county leaders conference, which is taking place here in Vancouver at the Hilton in November. So that's all of our organizations. So all of our affiliates, all of our elected county members. And then we'll begin planning for a lobbying day at some point during the legislative session, likely February or March, where we'll set up meetings with anywhere from 15 to 20 different legislators. And we have a crazy schedule of 15-minute windows where we go in and we, as concisely as possible, share what we want them to help us out with. So, and then this was just sort of a slide from another, but this is, this is some of the other stuff that Waxman is participating in. I mentioned the EPR for batteries rulemaking is taking place. There's a compostable products work group that is right now a large stakeholder group that's identifying what should happen with compostable products in the state as relates to our compost requirements. Ecology is also leading a solid waste management plan requirements update, which I believe Joelle, you guys were part of that.
I am on that group, and so is Sarah Schrager.
That's right. And the goal of that is to reduce the burden, especially some of the financial costs or things that lead to financial costs around solid waste management plan requirements. So sort of ease the burden, ease the cost related to developing solid waste management plans. And then the Recycling Development Center, which is another ecology-led work group that's statutory that is really aimed at improving recycling markets and how to improve recycling markets and bring more of that economy to the state. So those are some of the work groups that we're participating in right now. We have members representing us. These are just some other things that I do, just so you know. This is I right now working on a big project related to clean energy and how their property taxes apply to wind farms and solar farms. Working on wildland urban interface and a lot of wildfire and forest management issues. Affordable housing as it relates to land use and a lot of the environmental overlap there. Working on some transportation resiliency projects with some counties around the Puget Sound, and broadband deployment to the rural parts of our state. So those are just some of the other things that fall under my portfolio that I get to talk to people and work on in addition to some of those. And that's it. I might have gone over time, but that was all that I had, and I threw a lot out there.
So the June conference and November conference will be Vancouver.
Sorry, I should have said, the June conference took place, and that was just Blackstone, and that took place in Ellensburg, at the beautiful downtown Ellensburg. That's usually where we have it, is somewhere around central Washington, just to make it accessible and affordable for these counties. And then our annual County Leaders Conference is in Vancouver this year, but it typically goes from east side to west side annually, so back and forth. So
Well, West Side, thanks for bringing us to Vancouver.
glad I can, and that was a contract that was signed like 7 years ago, but glad I can.
Well, thank you very much, Travis. Travis likes to remind me that I was a bully to him in middle school, and I feel like he bullies me now by showing off this girl's full head of hair.
I'm glad you said it. Jason and I, yeah, he destroyed my weird eye ankle that season. I just threw it on the ground and stomped on it. Still have never gotten it.
Your next birthday.
Well, look at you here. Anyways, thank you all very much. If you have questions, contact information is with you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right, let's move on to additional organics, yard debris, Tatum.
Hello, thank you. Can y'all hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Awesome. So yes, I am an I'm an operations specialist senior here with Clark County, focused on organics. So I'm just going to do a short update on organics as far as it goes for the state as well as Clark County. So as y'all may or may not know, the state is heavily focused on food waste and organic material because it is the largest material by weight in the landfill and ultimately leads to consequential, harmful and negative impacts on our community and our environment. And so the state is committed through a variety of laws to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions from this organic material by ensuring that these resources are utilized to their fullest potential instead of being wasted. And so how is the county supporting these state goals? And what are we doing right now? So in 2023, the county passed a compost procurement ordinance that was mandated by law, as well as got my position. So I'm happy to be here. And then in 2024, what we have done so far is continue to work on the compost procurement ordinance through countywide, cross-departmentally, discussing with all the departments on what the compost ordinance means, and implemented a policy as well as a procedure for staff who are procuring compost in their projects. And then ultimately they will report it to the solid waste department, and the solid waste department is mandated to report those tonnages back to ecology in the state. I've done a variety of outreach to compost facilities just to ensure that we do have local compost producers in the area that are certified nationally, that are any of our compost or our county departments can purchase their compost, as well as been in contact with cities on the compost procurement ordinance to provide them any assistance, provide feedback if they have any questions, as well as if they're signed on our yard debris contract, they will be provided tonnages each year for their reporting. And if you all don't know, there's also, under the organics management laws, we are in the business organics phase where local governments are supposed to be providing that service to businesses. However, Clark County worked alongside Columbia Resource Company this summer to provide a request from Ecology that we are excluded from those business organics requirements for 2025. So our letter and our request got approved. So we are excluded for the organics requirements for 2025. I'm also on a work group with Ecology that is a planning work group kind of for the solid waste management plan, but my specific guidance on some of the structure in that group is for the organics management laws and future compliance with the solid waste management plans and kind of what that looks like and guidance with that, as well as the yard debris curbside collection request for proposal got released yesterday, finally, yay. And so in that, I included a bunch of parameters and language to include for the future planning of organic services, because this is a 10-year plus contract. So we want to make sure that we're including all of what we can and then amend it as needed. I'm also just continuing to engage with Ecology as well as Columbia Resource Company and the cities in regards to organics, because our limitation is our transfer station capacity. And so how can we all collectively work together to figure out this pretty big problem? But I know we can all work together and find a solution. So the future of organics and kind of all that we're doing at the county in regards to organics, we will continue to discuss and engage with our stakeholders, transfer stations, the haulers, the cities. Please reach out if you have any questions or want to talk. I would really love to talk about all things food waste. And also here at the county, we are here to provide data to cities in regards to our progress, as well as Ecology, especially with the update of our solid waste management plan. We are going to be transparent with our data, as well as, last but not least, one of my other responsibilities is to continue to leverage grants and funding to support these diversion of organics to higher values in order to positively benefit our community. So leveraging the grants and funding is huge with all of these organics management laws that are coming down. And that's my quick update. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Dana. All right, one thing we're missing from the agenda is an update from Jess Fishberg.
All right, hi everybody. Jess Fishberg here. I'm here to talk about the hazardous waste collection events that we had, and I'm gonna pull up a PowerPoint. All right, there we go. So this spring we held 3 hazardous waste collection events in Northern County where residents live farthest from our permanent hazardous waste drop-off facilities. So this really gives them an opportunity to dispose of their built-up hazardous waste that could otherwise be, stockpiled or improperly disposed, poured down the drain, put in the garbage, those sorts of things. So hazardous waste is a priority to get out of households because it is dangerous. So some examples would be motor oil, aerosols, pesticides, paint, cleaning chemicals. So this is really just a kind of a pop-up experience you can drive through and we'll take your hazardous waste. And it's at no cost to the residents. And we were very successful this year. So I'm going to share kind of how we got residents there and how much waste we received. So we mailed notification to all residents within a 5-mile radius of each event. So it was in Yakult, La Center, and Ridgefield were the 3 sites. And this is what one of those postcards looked like. Just kind of gives you the location, the time, how to contact us ahead of time. And the back lists all the waste that you can bring and what you can't bring. The cities also posted information on their websites. So Yakult, La Center, and Ridgefield had that as well. And we drew a lot of people in. Here's the stats from each event. Ridgefield had 212 people drive through, 13,425 pounds of hazardous waste, or 6.7 tons there. And then Yakult, we had, well over double that waste with only 119 participants. So Yakult, about 20 tons of hazardous waste. La Center, almost 200 people, 31,000 pounds, or 15.7 tons. So it's kind of crazy how widely that varied, but total 42 tons of hazardous waste were taken out of 527 households, and that averages 160 pounds per participant. And then I'll just show you kind of what that made up, what that was made up of at each location, because it's a little different at each site, which is kind of interesting. So I do need to point out that these charts aren't totally accurate. I'm missing the weights of a few wastes and working with the consultant, the hazardous waste company, to fill in those gaps, but it's very close to what it would be. So Ridgefield was mostly paint. 49% of HHW was paint, and that's by weight. Latex paint, oil-based paint, 11%, motor oil, 7%. This non-hazardous number is a California-only hazardous liquid that they bulked up and disposed of as hazardous waste. Batteries, lead acid, paint-related material, and then it goes down a little bit more. So basically paint, motor oil, lead acid batteries at this site. And Yakult was a little different, mostly motor oil, 51%. And Yakult is the most remote site out of the 3. It's the farthest north that you can get. So there are less drop-off options for paint and motor oil. So it kind of makes sense that there's more here. There's less auto shops that you can bring oil to. So there's that, paint, antifreeze, flammables, lead acid, batteries again. And then it goes on. La Center, more kind of even distribution. Latex paint, 34%. Antifreeze, 23%. That was a high number. Lead acid batteries, oil again, pesticides. So you can tell that our top wastes are the latex paint, motor oil, antifreeze, lead acid batteries, and oil-based paint. So at these events, those were the major wastes, the ones that I just listed off, that we received, which has always kind of been the case for hazardous waste events. That's what people have a lot of. We saw only 6 more people at these events than in the previous year. In 2023, we also had 3 events, but we did see 14-ton increase in the amount of hazardous waste we collected. So on average, that was 160 pounds per household this year, and last year was about 130 pounds per participant. So we're thinking maybe, people have heard about our events and they know to come to us when they have hazardous waste. So getting more demand for the event, perhaps. We did see a low quantity in Ridgefield compared to the two other events, which was interesting. I wanted to point that out. And my theory kind of is, since we do that event, so I didn't explain. So Ridgefield's event happens the same time as their annual cleanup event, where the city provides disposal for yard debris, electronics, bulky waste, tires, and a few other items. So I think that since we are added on to their event, that people are more focused on all those other materials, that they might not spend the same amount of time cleaning up their hazardous waste as they do at the other events. So that's kind of the idea there. So postcards were really successful. We brought in, the same amount of people as last year. Wait times were low. There were some wait time issues the previous year that we cleared up with the contractor. Before the event, we received some questions, which was really exciting, that people were paying attention to the postcard and what they could bring and couldn't. So there were inquiries about appliances, electronics, and tires, I believe, were the main ones. The contractor was really efficient. Wait times were low. I think I just doubled it. I did that one twice. We did have to reject some non-hazardous waste. That was, I think there was one TV, one 55-gallon drum of oil and rainwater that we had to refer them to hire a hazardous waste company directly, since that's not considered household waste when you have more than 10-gallon size. So that was on the postcard, no sizes over the 10 gallons. And I think there were a couple tires, but overall really successful. People brought what they were supposed to. And in La Center, we did the event at the middle school, which ended up being great. There was enough queue space that we didn't have any traffic backing up into town, which had happened the previous year. So really smooth as far as these things go. And we had over 500 people at these events, so we got to talk to a lot of people about hazardous waste. Every person received a packet of outreach information. So in that packet, we had the Recycle Right card, where you can, go to our Recycle Right directory and type in any waste that you need disposing of, and it'll show you all the year-round options. We had a postcard about recycling batteries and where the drop-off locations can be found, and had a little battery fire sticker that is pretty neat. Well, I should have gotten a picture of it. It's a little garbage can on fire with a link to our website, which shows you where to bring your batteries. So that one was kind of fun. And we also had the Secure Your Load brochures in the packet. So that packet actually went to about 700 people, because we also gave it to the other participants at the City of Ridgefield's event. So about 200 dropped off yard debris and garbage, but didn't stop for HHW. So gave it to a lot of people. And the outreach staff doing this job said that they had some great conversations with the residents, that people were talking about paint and how long that they've had this stuff in their homes, and that they're happy to have an option to dispose of it instead of going to the transfer stations on the weekends. So again, we safely disposed of 42 tons of hazardous waste from about 500 households. So all of this blew away our goals. I think we had a goal of 30 tons of hazardous waste. So it was a huge turnout, and this is something that we're going to continue doing each year. And I can take questions. I was going quick. I think I got everything.
Hey, Jess, I was just curious. You had mentioned that you thought the Ridgefield was had quite a bit less attendees because of the cleanup. What do you think? Maybe it had to do with the fact that Ridgefield, we're talking a different demographic of individuals. I'm just, and I'm sorry, I'm just spitballing here. I was just wondering, would Hawkinson, Amboy, and say Fern Prairie maybe be better locations? That's where you getting into the areas where you're going to have a lot of folks doing their own mechanic work and creating a lot more of that waste.
Yeah, all those areas are covered by our kind of 5 mile radius that we mail to, that we do kind of cover those neighborhoods. The Ridgefield event, we had a lot of participants, but it was just low quantity per person. So
Mhm.
it could be that they had no room for the HHW with all their other wastes, or could be that they're closer to all the paint care drop-off locations because they are the kind of closest site to the more populated areas. So it's kind of hard to tell. We're thinking of maybe splitting off from the city's event next year to see what would happen, see if there's more attention given to hazardous waste instead of all the other wastes. And then there's opportunity to switch the location. We have some ideas in progress that could be, a more centralized location to hit more of those unincorporated Clark County residents that are up there.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Jess? All right, I'm gonna take a step back now that we do have a quorum. Look back at the meeting minutes of May 2nd.
Yeah, sorry, Jason, for coming in a little late there.
Yeah, no problem. Life happens. Just wanna open it up to a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I'd second.
Okay. All in favor?
Oh,
Oh,
motion,
well,
second, second discussion.
oh. Thanks, sir. Make sure you're not invited. Just wants to leave you. Open for discussion?
Has Scott had a chance to review this as far as see? Oh, this is
Yeah,
minutes?
yeah.
Oh, I thought this was.
No.
Comps, no, you
No.
kind of warrant.
No.
I'm gonna turn red, you first. Go ahead. Shut up.
All right, all in favor to approve the, what is it, May 2nd meeting minutes?
Aye.
All right, so moved. Now moving on to review and approve the comprehensive solid waste management plan.
And I think there was kind of a typo part because we didn't mean to approve it, it was more just like talking about what the approval process looks like.
Perfect.
So, yeah, absolutely, we wanted to make sure that we got paper copies out to those that requested it. The commenting period just starts today, so we're gonna start receiving those, we'll make sure everyone has a chance to comment, and we wanted to make sure SWAC knew that they also have the opportunity to continue to comment on this draft if there's anything that's coming up that needs to be addressed in our revision, in our review. So there's time. Yeah, but just wanted to just make sure that that was clear because we've been doing this a long time. So I think this group of SWAC is, oh, do you want to add to that too, Christina, in terms of like the review process? Since we have policy here, I don't want to like speak for the.
I mean, so, like the review process, was submitted to us, it was, June 30th. And so, once that was sent to us, I accepted it and sent the transmittal letter, and then from there it starts the 120-day process for ecology. We don't have to, we could not take up that 120 days to get it to you quicker, and that's always the goal. And yeah.
And now there's just a lot of surprises, right? We're sort of like, well, we've got this 120 days and you hit all those markers and then you sort of let us know as we go, all the approvals that are going on. So we'll keep SWAC informed.
Yeah, and then also, something that I do want to verify about the SWAC, is okay with doing the whole commenting on it during the comment period that you're having right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So then we do need a vote on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, just to clarify, voting that we're okay with commenting during the 120 days.
Well, during this open public comment period that started today, and that's when it's August 30th.
Is SWAC okay commenting during August 1st
On
through
the
August
plan.
30th on the plan?
Okay.
I think we should hear. I knew you were going to say
Comments from ourselves, comments from.
From yourself as a SWAC, reviewing the plan and submitting your comments with that.
The next 30 days.
So we'd be submitting comments the same way the public is.
And we have it filtered, so you select SWAC, so we know it's a SWAC. It's filtered.
Those all comments,
And it
whether
was
SWAC
similar-
or not, would be
yeah.
public.
And it's similar to how you all did it last summer, when you
Right.
did comments last summer, it's the same sort of portal for your entering this chapter, this is my comment, I'm a SWAC member.
Point of information, since we're supposed to be sensitive to the public at large on this topic, could it be considered that we would have access to seeing what the public is commenting during these 30 days and possibly have an additional 15 to 20 days after the 30 days?
So our
For SWAC.
dashboard, you will be able to see them as they're, so
Oh,
you can
okay.
see them on the site, and we can go through that too. But the link has been set out to all of you, and we have a web page with the solid waste management plan, and we have the dashboard for commenting, so then as comments come in, we are not editing them, they are live. I mean, the people's names I don't believe are visible, I have tested, right? They're not, right? Amanda's been working on this. But the comments are there, so you can see them as they come in.
I was just thinking, there's probably some good ideas that are gonna come from the public. And I would think like any other deadline, there's a tendency to procrastinate a little bit. At least I'll fess up as being guilty. And anticipating that other people might do that near the end of the 30 days. Could we possibly have an extra 10 days after over the 30 for SWAC to be able to respond? Does that make any sense to anybody?
Would that be an extra 10 days that it's not open to public comment, but only open to SWAC comment?
That they would just accept, yeah, we would be able to review the public comments and possibly modify our comments to either endorse or amplify or, endorse what might be suggested. I'm just thinking that somebody comes in with a real strong but surprising suggestion. Near the end, would we have time to digest it as an advisory commission?
I like what you're saying, but I'm gonna defer to make sure that all that will work out with timelines and so forth.
I believe so, for ecology and our review, our comments are gonna be due, at the latest back to the county, like in October. So.
And one clarification, this might be a silly question. Once this is open for public comment, that is anyone in the state can comment on it? Or is this just for the county or anyone? Right, are we identifying who's commenting, where they are from, like geographic regions?
Yeah, we had it set for the county residents, and then we've asked, to identify if you're a SWAC member, if you're a regional solid waste system steering committee member, if you're part of the municipality. But you can see that on that. Yeah.
So it's just through the county website only, well, I suppose someone
Someone could,
could comment
yeah,
if that's their thing, but
they're going and just corrupting solid waste management. Plans.
for this opportunity.
That's right.
I could go either way. I know that there's desire to get this plan in place, since, we are, up against the clock, maybe we run over the clock, but, I could go either way. I'd be more inclined to kind of watch the comments as they come, but, yeah, I agree.
I have a funny, a question if I can ask, not a board representative. So you're Okay, I was gonna ask, did this SWAC with forum vote to submit the preliminary plans at a previous meeting, or is this that vote? Because I was under the impression that that did occur. Okay, it did. Okay. I was just wondering that was the public comment period now, because now that we're like 30 days deep, the college has until the 45th day to like scoop out anything, like technically rejected and send it back, which we basically never do. But so okay, thank you very much.
So I'm fine with extending SWAC comment period as long as it does not hold up Department of Ecology, which it sounds like it won't. To an additional 15 days post public comment, for us a chance to review public comment, make any adjustments to our comments and so forth.
I just think if we're gonna comment on likely students, it's not, maybe hopefully likely, but good ideas and observations to put in to public comment. Motion,
We're now short of a form.
Do you want to specify a date, just to have like if it's 15 days, or if you want to just making it like September 13th or.
It currently ends August 30th. September 15th.
September 15th is Sunday, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, we could just say the 15th, or whatever you all want, but just scratch that out.
I would say 13th, depending on the business week.
Friday the 13th.
Perfect.
Motion.
Yes.
Okay, it is requested of move that the SWAC advisory commission has an additional days until September 13th to respond to the proposed solid waste comprehensive management plan. The 30 days of the public comment and an additional, December 13th, because that's the last business day of that week, Friday the 13th.
We went for the motion. Yes, I'm sorry. I would second that. Sorry, I marked it down, so I'm on the token, so I'm sorry. I've been going in and out.
You're good. You're good. Do we have a second? Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Move it. All right, I already mentioned it earlier, but 2024 SWAC board vacancies. We have 4 open positions, 3 expiring terms, 1 vacant position. So the 3 terms expiring is county at large, East County and also the business community. The open position is small cities and towns. That recruitment period is July 31st at 5. We currently have 4 candidates. And I believe the process, if a vacant position is not filled, it will be reposted by the county to solicit applications. All right, any questions on that? Public hearing for the 2025-2030 comprehensive solid waste management plan. None? All right, next meeting, November 7th. Hope to see, now that we have snacks, how we get more people in person. That's what I'm voting for. Other than that, I'd say meeting adjourned. Thank you all.